Hello, and welcome to another commentated game of Infinity. This is another remote access league game between the jurisdictional command of Corregidor and the combined army. The scenario is Biotechvore, and the players are already underway. The Corregidor player has won the role, and the lieutenant role revealed that the combined army player was using a Whip 17 lieutenant. On the basis of that, and because it's Biotechvore, our Corregidor player, I think, quite sensibly elected to go first. The players are already moving, they're just on into the impetuous phase, and I will run you through deployment. So the Corregidor player, having deployed first on this side of the table, has deployed a core link of Mobile Brigada, a multi-rifle flamethrower, a boarding shotgun, a missile launcher, and a HMG, with a Daktari Doctor wildcarded in. There is also a Haris. This is the Senior Massacre and Jaguar. One Jaguar has a light shotgun, one Jaguar has a chain rifle, and is the Eclipse Breaker Combi Senior Massacre profile. It's a Transductor zoned here, Jasmine Jazz with Billy over here. McMurrah has already impetuous forwards from this point in the deployment zone. And then we have a Moran that failed its role to infiltrate, and a Moran here that succeeded. It's prone in this little nook in what will probably prove to be an excellent, albeit somewhat restricted position. There's also a Transductor zoned here, and to be honest, I'm not confident it will ever attempt to leave the zone, but I've been surprised before. McMurrah, of course, is already impetuousing forward. This is a full 15 order list, and it may be familiar to some players who watched a practice game between Onyx Contact Force and Corregidor previously posted on the channel. The combined army player has successfully infiltrated a camouflage marker and has failed a camouflage marker, which is a shrouded that has deployed over here. They also have Bit and Kiss. This is the Killer Hacker Bit profile. An Icadron, a slave drone attached to Dr. Worm, who is over here. A Dadarazi, a Taiga with DACCW, a Taiga with DACCW, a Q drone with HMG, not presently looking at anything, but in position, I suspect, to bracket the Transductor zone if it moves. Another Dadarazi, another Icadron, and then this Silhouette 7 is your chunky boy, the Avatar, positioned with a fair bit of line of fire laterally across the table, although I don't believe it can presently see the Senior Massacre Harris moving out. The interesting thing about the deployment here is that the Avatar has chosen, this is one of the last models to go down, using its own Strategos capacity to reserve, and it has chosen to place it across the table from the Moran. But provided that the Moran doesn't move too far forward, the Avatar will have a degree of space it can occupy and be safe from hacking. Also worth noting is that there is only one hacker in the Corregidor list, which limits to an extent the Avatar's susceptibility. And of course the Avatar is immune to possession. So we're early in the game here, and this is the move out phase of the game. On this table, there is a very high ridge across the center of the table, which is basically strongly limits really significant AROs from player deployment zones until players begin to crest the ridge. So I think here we can already see one potential ARO. There is meant to be a bridge here, but it's just being closed for this line of fire checking. And we can see Senior Massacre can see Kiss over here. And he's attempting, it looks like he's attempting to throw some smoke face to face with an adhesive launcher roll. Which is an interesting choice because frankly you could just take the combi rifle shot and hope in this circumstance. But I respect the decision to want to get Massacre up to cover and safety. I suspect here that Ben has deployed his random Space Goth HVT down in a position where once you move past it, you will be out of the Biotechvore zone. Again, that's a nice thing that you can do in Biotechvore scenarios in order to basically give yourself a watermark. Ben has had 2 orders stripped, I think, from the second combat group, which is going to sharply limit, in particular, Jazz and this Moran's ability to get out of the biotech zone. 2 orders is strictly speaking enough to do it, but it's going to be a pretty tight run thing. And that combat group, I believe that combat group is the Transductor zones, the Morans, Jazz, and McMurrah. No, it won't be all of those. It's the Morans, Jazz, McMurrah, and Billy. Is my understanding of what's in that second combat group. If it's not Jazz, then it's the Transductor zones. Either way, what's going to be very important is getting Jazz to safety because she holds the greatest capacity to threaten this Avatar, given that it's deployed a long way away from the Corregidor close combat assets. We can see we've got Jaguars and Massacre and McMurray. Now McMurray can shift position pretty fast, but uh, he's not going to be able to get to the avatar at least quickly or easily. And of course there is this Q drone that will no doubt be watching the avatar's back. All right. So we've got basically forward positioning and forward momentum. Looks like some dodges, etc. Yep. So the Jaguar Harris has moved up to occupy this position. Massacre is nice and in cover. It'll be interesting to see if they stop there or if they keep moving. This is not a like gunfight that you want to be taking, 32-inch range combi rifle shots. But feasibly he could move up in position. There's basically the breaker combi and the light shotgun, no other weapons on that Jaguar, to bracket these models in. Most likely if they did that, the Q drone would come and show them what for, but be interesting to see. McMurray looks like he's already most of the way out of the Biotechvore zone, and on a regular move forward he'll get clear, which leaves 2 regular orders and as many coordinated orders as Ben can leverage to get the rest of the army in that combat group clear. Just while we're watching this play out, I've switched recording software for this recording. I'm happy to take any feedback anyone has in the comments. How are audio levels? How's the overlay? How's the quality of the video? If it's no noticeable difference from previous ones, that's fantastic because this software, this is recorded using OBS, which among other things is free. Now the Corregidor list, as I noted, we have seen before. It looks like it might have been very slightly tweaked, but for mobile brigadas, I really like this list, to be honest. It's giving up a few like possible subtle elements and versatility, and it is losing some versatility, right? Because it's this Jaguar Harris can only activate at short range. McMurray is in a restrained combat group list. The Morans, etc. It's really built around 2 links, some basic gunfighting, just generally good quality Corregidor stuff. There's no like extraordinary power pieces here, except in the sense that Brigada link is great. It's heavyweight, it's decently started across the board, multiplied by the link. This is just a good staple Corregidor list that invests heavily in Brigadas. You could downgrade that Brigada link to include weaker pieces to upgrade other elements, but there doesn't seem to be a need to. This list hits 15 orders, so we'll see the Brigada link move out shortly. I suspect they will occupy this high ground here. What I'm not sure about is if they will move up to engage the Avatar. It may or may not be worthwhile. A missile hit into the Avatar will also splash a Arazi, and establishing missile overwatch on the Avatar will force it to fight its way clear. But on the other hand, those face-to-face rolls are a little mediocre. To engage the Avatar from the high ground would need you to be on this bridge here, I believe, which is probably, yeah, that will be within 32 inches. So you're not getting missile launcher range advantage on the Avatar. And you wouldn't get that without being here on this high ground thoroughly exposed. So sort of it's a question of how many orders will the core link have to push forward and engage? What will it be able to fight? Yeah, it can probably fight the Q drone from this position behind this building without having to engage the Avatar, and that might be able to, yeah, any further and it starts seeing the Avatar. That's not too bad. But I don't know if there are any really easy kills apart from maybe pinning down the Q drone and setting up some overwatch to threaten those Tigers. There's also this camouflage marker. I don't have the player's army list, so I don't know what this is, but we did see a shrouded forward observer failure roll. We know it isn't a shrouded mine layer because there aren't 2 mines, but it could be a shrouded hacker, which would be interesting. On the combined army side, I believe the Q drone was a reserve drop alongside the Avatar, and I think that's kind of an excellent choice. I don't know if this Q drone will live or die this particular game, but it offers some defense, forces Ben to think about what he engages. And I suspect that the hope here for the Combined Army player, this is not, it's not a sectoral, which means it doesn't have links to let it move forward, but it does have a massive ton of orders because of the avatar. And it also has impetuous troops that can bring themselves forward. The only models in this entire army that are sort of inefficient to move forward in the Biotechvore scenario are Dr. Worm and Bit and Kiss because they can't be coordinated. They have to spend orders themselves. And I imagine Bit here would have to spend probably 3 orders to get clear of the biotech zone. She probably won't do it in 2. She's too far back. Also, just kind of as a random thing to note, this Shrouded could potentially be left behind in the Biotechvore zone and take a wound and then recover itself with regeneration, possibly several times. Thanks to regen, the Shrouded functionally has 2 chances to save against the Biotechvore zone. Once needing a 15, not great, obviously, BTS 0, but then once needing a 12 or less, which is actually quite a good chance to regenerate. That's a 60% chance. So overall, a solid chance here for the Shrouded to potentially be left behind without massive loss. We'll see what the Combined Army player does. So the Brigada link here, just moving forward, and I'm sure they'll soon begin to occupy some of this high ground. So the Brigada have continued to move forward, and we're just starting to see lines of fire emerge. There's a check to see, could a model up here see this camouflage marker, which I don't think so, not until they get a bit further forward. And of course, when can they see the avatar, and when can they see that Q drone?
I guess we'll just do this now. Any reactions?
I don't think I can see you with anybody.
Cool. Okay. So at this point, we'll have him go 2 inches to be up on top of this thing. At this point.
So sort of the question here is, it's about at this tech coffin, which was part of the map, not used for the Biotechvore scenario. Is that the point at which sort of a model comes into line of fire of the avatar? And we can see from this angle that there's kind of like just a smidge. I can mouse over and see the alouette, the avatar's silhouette 7, and probably nothing else can be seen from this position, except maybe the camouflage marker that is not a Libertos, and probably a Shrouded.
So this missile launcher is going to move.
So just moving the team forward.
Point
This terrain is built to be very vaultable, so it's not a totally straight path, but it's a pretty straight path up the table.
and then she should be able to get up.
Regatta are, of course, 6-2 move, but the Daktari is 4-4. Although I suspect in this case the Daktari will not mind being in the rear with the gear.
This guy will move.
There's going to be a real, I'm not going to say a real challenge, but there's going to be something Ben will have to take care of or bear in mind as he moves forward, which is just the defensive posture the team adopts at the end of the turn. Because the Avatar is a pretty existential threat to these guys. It's a very, very powerful gunfighter, and sort of none of the Brigada individually can really go toe-to-toe with it. Armor 5 helps massively. It means against the Avatar's armor-piercing rounds, they'll still be at least armor 3 plus cover. But yeah, no, they don't want to face the full might of a HMG except under most dire circumstances, and they, in particular, don't want to just have him run up and Sepsitor them. They dodge on 14s, which is pretty good, but they are only BTS 3, and the Avatar's Sepsitor is a massive damage 18. Since it, of course, benefits from the BS attack +1 damage that the Avatar is packing. Just testing some lines of fire here to see what can see what. While Ben's figuring out what can go what here, I should mention a quick correction. I noticed the Brigada silhouette for this, or image for this, but this is in fact an Evader. It's an engineer with boarding shotgun, AP mines, and all of the Evader's usual shtick, which is actually a really nice addition to this link. It means that the link has both a doctor and an engineer, in addition to the Brigada multi-rifle, Brigada missile launcher, and Brigada HMG, able to engage at all range bands. The only thing I would say is a problem with this is I'd moused over this and I'd assumed it was a Brigada with boarding shotgun, which disguises the existence of a lieutenant. But actually, with this being an evader, it means that the multi-rifle Brigada is the lieutenant. Now, that's not necessarily a massive problem. It's a really robust lieutenant. It's tough, it's hard to kill with link bonuses. It fights back very effectively. You often won't want to go in after it. Even something like, say, a Assassin for Day making an assassination run would be pretty sketchy about doing so because the Brigada will just flamethrower to kill the Fidei and has a really good chance of surviving whatever attacks the Fidei might leverage against it. But it does mean, so for example, if the Avatar or some other model, or if this camouflage marker turns out to be a hacker, then basically they have a clear line on an obvious target. Just while Ben's moving forward and choosing to take some action or not, some thoughts about Biotechvore generally. It is one of my favorite-ish scenarios. I've never had a bad game of Biotechvore, but I also appreciate that it's not people's favorites. Biotechvore tends to require not just a specific list. You want lists that can efficiently leave the Biotechvore zone one way or the other, and there are ways that both vanilla and sectoral armies can do that. But you need a specific playstyle. You need to have a sort of willingness to, you need to be willing to take casualties, you need to be willing to spend a lot of time moving, and a lot of the movements you have to make are kind of counterintuitive. Much of the role the first person has to sort of fulfill in this scenario is running forward into your opponent's guns while they like setting yourself up in a position where a counterattack will be potentially devastating. And that's just the nature of having to leave the Biotechvore zone. This map in particular as well really forces Ben onto the high ground and into line of fire. All right, so the conversation now about whether or not the Avatar has line of fire. I think are they okay? There's a specifically it's the is the bridge solid? A quick chat between players to figure out this one. From this side, it looks like the Avatar has line of fire to the Brigada. Actually looks fairly clear, even with the that bridge being played as solid. But I'm a little skeptical that I am seeing from the Avatar. I think I'm looking from over the top of the Avatar's head. Now, if Ben is very lucky here, he's moving up his missile launcher to get this line of fire. If Ben is just a little bit lucky, then he will catch the Avatar beyond 32. And the Avatar is way, 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 way back. But whether that's more than 32 is very hard to say. If he does, he'll have the Avatar down to 9s, and he'll be on 10s, which is actually a face-to-face roll that could feasibly, like, you can get unlucky real quickly doing that. 2 dice 10s does not reliably land a hit, and a crit will clean you the fuck up. But if that is beyond range, then that missile launcher has a really good chance, not just of putting some wounds on the Avatar and catching it in a really nasty position, but also a hit on this Avatar, the missile explosion will propagate from the Avatar's base and blow this Datarazi out. Datarazi will dodge on 11s, which is still really good under the circumstances, but that's a savage missile clip. And I think Ben has noticed this. I personally, I get real antsy taking active fights, even with Burst 2 missile launchers, but you cannot deny that if they hit, they really, really hit. So it looks like Ben is just moving up to like just not have line of fire. There's a bit of shuffling around here. It would not be the worst thing in the world to leave the Brigada there and just sort of note that if the Avatar moves forward, the Avatar sees the Brigada. You're putting a tax on his advance. And again, if that's more than 32, magnificent. It probably, but not certainly isn't. And no line of fire to the rest of the combined army yet. They're sort of hunkered in quite well. I think the table edge that the combined army player has chosen is the right one in this case, and in particular that's because there are some really good paths that you can occupy into the safe zone that stick to the low ground. Ben in this scenario, Ben being the Corregidor player, Ben is forced to really occupy high ground. Oh, okay. And that exposes him. Alright, so the missile launcher has apparently seen... I don't think that's line of fire, but the missile launcher has seen an Ichatron?
Possibly get you out of cover. Like, are you you're obscured by this, but I don't know if you're obscured by that thing.
That's not... That's cover, Ben, that's... Yeah. The line that he would need to cross to catch this Ichatron out of cover would be he would need to have moved around to this high ground quite close to the Shrouded.
Let me check. Yeah, probably maybe he has cover. I don't know.
It is an interesting discussion. I wonder if the avatar is intended to see.
Okay.
Okay, alright, so I see the line underneath this Koyoko gate over this. Let's see how the players roll.
I get 2 hits.
2 missile launcher hits on the Ichatron. So this is a good start. Any cheap kill that you can get, fantastic. You'll note that I did assume that the Ichatron was going to die. That's because it got hit by a missile twice. So that's an order now that can't, not just an order that won't be generated by the combined army pressure of the game, but an order that won't be available to push the combined army out of the deployment zone. And yeah, this missile launcher moving forward and back again. So that's presumably the point to see the avatar. Now this is the ballsy play. There's a Dactari right behind it. It is super unlikely that the Brigada will go all the way to dead from, say, a reactive crit from the avatar. 4 saves, damage 16, etc. But yeah, a lot. This is active missile launcher shots. This is a play for all of the marbles. Just pausing here to really appreciate the 3D model on the avatar that's been imported in. Really wonderful. Yep.
Oh yeah, of course. So I think AP actually is better against the avatar, but
So Ben, it looks like, has chosen to use AP rounds here. I would definitely go for the soft kill on the Datarazi, 100%. All right, so the face-to-face roll's happening at 33 inches. Ooh, 32.2. They're really measuring this. 31 point.
So that's pretty lucky for the avatar. I don't know if I could have shot him beyond. Probably could, but that will save that for later. So you've got your +3 minus.
So Ben, I think, has made a little bit of a mistake here. He measured that non-3D and it showed 31.8. But anyway, that looked like it was more than 32 to me. Still, we've got a face-to-face roll. Looks like the avatar will be on 15s and the Brigada will be on 10s. Let's see what happens. A 9. Okay, so does not affect the outcome. Missile launcher hits the avatar. So the Datarazi needs to roll a 10, 11, or 9 to survive here. Oh, and does not. So, what is this? Fuck you, TTS. Did anyone else see that dice? So the Datarazi is unconscious. And the avatar here, now the avatar is not taking an armor piercing round, so his armor will be 9, but it won't get cover, so the avatar is looking for 6s. And takes a wound.
So you need to beat a 14, so the 5's not enough because that is.
That's a really good outcome. So again, any kind of a kill that you can get, and that was a ballsy play on Ben's part.
I'm rolling today very badly.
And I respect that paid off. I think it's really good that it did. There's an interesting question sort of to be asked. Did the avatar deploy correctly in that position? And if not, then where else could it have deployed? And specifically, the reason why I asked that is you always want to be in a position where you can guts back into cover. But I think it's probably reasonable to assume that the avatar player here did not anticipate being outranged by a missile. Typically, typically you'll expect the HMG to be the active weapon. So kudos to Ben for spotting an opportunity for splash. Melbourne players, I have noticed, are really good at that. People may have seen I've recorded some games of mine against Ryan Kirby from Melbourne, and Ryan doesn't beat me a lot, but he always makes me work for it. And something that he is absolutely amazing at is just spotting those high ground angles with missiles. And I wonder if Ben taught him that. All right, we have another miss and another hit. So once again, another missile hit clips the avatar here. And then this time, another wound.
Enough. So he takes a wound.
I wonder if he's chosen... So the fact that the data analyzer isn't making saves tell me he's switched to AP rounds.
Gonna spend an
Now,
on the
Ben is spending a lot of orders here. And by a lot, I mean, I don't think Ben has any orders left in his primary group. But this is, yeah, no, he's just going for it.
Oh,
Okay. So he's pushed his whole link forward, and he's been rewarded. The avatar is destroyed. So of course, this is not going to be loss of the turn for the combined army player. The avatar can jump into any of the other troops on the game table. I think this camouflage marker would be an interesting choice, but then also so would Bit, for example.
has removed
But this is a massive blow for the combined army player's ability to win this game. The
the 6 is enough. Or is it? So you go down to
there's just a discussion about.
Six isn't enough. You just took.
Yeah, I got one wound remaining, so
You had
it's okay.
two?
One, two, and three.
Okay, so they need 6 wounds out to them. Okay, cool.
So I'm not sure what that conversation was just now. That avatar is like extremely dead. That avatar has failed like 5 saving throws. But they are apparently choosing to leave it on the table. Now, there is a kind of a discussion that you could go into here where is loss of lieutenant for a turn, and then I guess is there a gambit here where
You want to use Team 1 Monica because that is actually really important because you have to remove the avatar if you want to use it for memory.
yeah, here we go. They're talking about
Yeah.
that now.
Yeah, I'm going to use Nemtech. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the avatar is going to be removed, and
But I think you have to actually take the avatar off the table when you choose to use
yeah,
it.
the avatar will be removed when it uses Gmail Monica, dissolves into a pile of goop, and we'll jump into another model.
It's complicated because if you don't use it, you'll be a loss of position. So I'll just check it quickly for you. It definitely works that way last edition, but I'm not sure about this edition.
Yeah, so they're just checking Memnonica now. I mean, I can tell you, the audience, that when a model uses Memnonica, it's removed from the table. But the players will figure that out, and then we'll pick back up. Okay, so the avatar player has elected not to use Memnonica. Now, there might have been some math, or maybe I calculated incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure over the course of several face-to-face rolls, the avatar has failed 5 saving throws, but possibly it's been 4. And regardless, yeah, I'm pretty sure against an armor-piercing round, an avatar in cover goes to armor 5, +3, roll a 6. Yeah, so the avatar, there's been a bit of a math fail here by the players. The avatar is destroyed. It's failed 5 saves, which takes it all the way to dead. But the players have missed that. That's fine. Play that as it lies. I'm not going to interrupt them because this is really interesting. So this is something that you can do as an avatar player. The avatar, they're playing it as its unconscious level. It's in unconscious level 2.
Oh, actually, no, he's slightly too short. Oh my god, that's
So
horrible.
1 injury.
He's too short.
One in. Pausing really briefly, there's a problem with Silhouette 1 models on this table. That's that they can't vault. Pywell is sitting here scrabbling terribly at this. Good work, idiot. Okay, backing up. So this is a really interesting play where the avatar here is unconscious. There are no more orders in Ben's link to pick it back up again. And sorry, to put it down for good, right? The Brigada could totally do it. The mimetism turns off while unconscious. She'd have 2 shots on 16s. She would absolutely clean it the fuck up. But there are no orders left, right? This is Biotechvore. Ben has had to spend orders moving other things forward. There have been orders just to move the missile launcher forward. So the combined army player knows that the Brigada, the avatar is safe. It can't be destroyed this turn. which means that he can choose to not use the Nonica. And that's important, by the way. He has to choose at the point when you go unconscious for the avatar, because the Nonica is an automatic skill, which means that when unconscious, it turns off. You have to use it in an order that you were conscious. So the avatar can't, for example, go unconscious and then not activate the Nonica, and then activate the Nonica if it goes to dead. It's all or nothing for an avatar because it does not have a rule that makes its unconscious state not a null state. But this is really interesting because it opens the path for the avatar player to play through a turn of loss of lieutenant and bring the avatar back, which is really, really fascinating because he has 4 command tokens even after stripping orders from the Corregidor player. And the avatar, as we said, the avatar in active turn is by far the best piece to exist as an existential threat to this Brigada. Now, I kind of don't want to think too much about the casualties that the combined army is going to have to sustain to bring this avatar back and push on forward in the same turn. They'll have no lieutenant orders. They won't have the strategic orders. They won't have the avatar's tactical awareness. None of those will be generated. They have a turn in loss of lieutenant, although they have, I think, 1 conscious Morat still alive. So this is a fascinating play. I would really like to see the combined army player rewarded for this. It'll be interesting. I suspect this Brigada probably can't see the path that Dr. Worm will take to repair the avatar either, which is really fascinating. Now, at minimum, I reckon the Brigada link have bought themselves a turn. I would be pretty shocked if the avatar can really be repaired and blow through everything and meaningfully push the combined army forward. But hella interesting. Really, really interesting play. All right, so the Corregidor player has just ended his turn, and we've passed over to the combined army player, who is doing his order count now, and obviously sort of figuring out the consequences of loss of lieutenant. So first things first, we've got the impetuous movements. There's been an FAQ recently. Impetuous is a little more restrictive than it has been. They've clarified that the movement that impetuous models take. Let me rephrase that. I think they've clarified that the movement impetuous models take is kind of similar to the movement that existed in. Okay, they have to pause now, and Ben has remembered that he needs to inflict casualties on his own troops. I did wonder about that. So it looks like Billy, the Transductor Zond, and this Transductor Zond are not long for this world. That's 1 down. Not coming back. Transductor Zond. These models need to roll pretty good with 2 dice. Okay, a Transductor Zond survives. That's a really good one too, because that's in a position to interfere with impetuous models. And the other one is unconscious. So look, two casualties here, not surprising. It looks like Ben has not elected to coordinate heavily. That or the Transductor Zonds are in a group with the core link. So we can see, sort of just as a bit of a recap, this Moran and Jazz have gotten clear. Jazz, as we noted, being sort of the essential personnel to get clear. The Harris has gotten clear. The core is fully clear. McMurray is clear. This Moran already made its infiltration roll, and this Transductor Zond has survived the Biotechvore zone. All right, so we're back now to impetuous orders. As I was saying, the FAQ said that you have to move as far as possible from your starting position and as close as possible to the enemy deployment zone. Now, we should not assume that N3 rules apply to N4. They're separate editions. Functionally, they're separate games. But we do know from N3 that when Corvus Belli says as close to the enemy deployment zone as possible, what that means is along the most efficient path towards the enemy deployment zone. I would be interested to learn if it's meant to have a different meaning. Wow, this is great viewing. Thanks for rewinding there. I'd be interested to see if it's meant to have a different meaning in N4. For example, it could perhaps be intended to mean as far along the path that you choose to get to the enemy deployment zone. And so the FAQ in that case would just mean, guys, you need to move in straight lines. You aren't allowed to zigzag. But as written, at least in English, yes, I know Corvus Belli write things in Spanish and translate them. They do have English staff writers on board, though. As written, it seems to mean, at least through the slightly faulty prism of N3 to N4, that old impetuous movement requirements exist-ish. What is important is that you still in N4 have a decision on what skills you declare. So in people who played impetuous models in N3 will remember like the old chestnuts of having to keep your shit a millimeter away from other things, etc., and keeping a millimeter away from table like ledges so that you didn't jump. Um, Whereas in N4, you more or less have a slightly broader discretion. You will almost always declare. You won't declare jump unless you want to jump. Also, jumping can't kill you like it used to. Models, without falling damage, impetuous models will never kill themselves throwing themselves off of buildings, which I have even had Hippolyta do in one game once, despite the fact that she has super jump, because she fell 11 inches. It was the right move at the time. But yeah, these Tigers are just blitzing forward. As Silhouette 1 models, again, they can't easily vault these table edges, but they can easily carry themselves out of the zone. And we can see just literally on move, 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 the Tigers are clear. There was no Overwatch to stop them, and yeah, they are just absolutely fucking gunning it. Just a quick moment to admire the really, really nice 3D models that are being used here. Very, very reminiscent of the combined army Gribbly drones, but I assume probably from another model range. They're almost like something like Games Workshop Enslavers or something, but absolutely gorgeous. Yep. Okay. Tager's moving forward. There's some Flash Pulse arrows. I don't know if this Tager is really in a position to do anything amazing, just because it can't get up to the space that the big models are on. It needs to find a ladder or something. But it can be a frustration later in the game. I almost want to see one. Yeah, no. So in retrospect, I wouldn't be surprised if the players kind of like missed at deployment that these elevation tiers aren't vaultable by Silhouette 1 models. I know Ben certainly missed it because he tried to move Billy forward before realizing that it couldn't be done. But in retrospect, I think the actual position that the Tigers wanted to be going for and where they should have deployed is for these ladders. So there's a ladder over here and over here. Both sides of the table have got access to the highest ground through ladders, and the Tigers can, of course, climb ladders. Just going to do a quick impetuous order from the Statarazi. Strictly speaking, we're past the impetuous phase, but I would really doubt that Ben has any shits to give about that. The Melbourne guys are all tremendous sports, and they're not that far forward into the game. So the Brigada might have line of fire there, but I think the Datarazi has to just go anyway. Like, he can't hang around. Everything is irregular. If Datarazi dies, whatever, he's a regular order left to be used. And he might live, and if he does live, he'll get smoked down. So, fantastic. Yep, no, it looks like no line of fire. So the Datarazi, the path that it's taking is around and up here. I don't actually think that's the quickest path to the enemy deployment zone. I think the quickest path... Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's up this set of pillars and then toward the enemy deployment zone that way. But there's a pretty strong argument that the quickest path is just up the highway. It's diagonal, but it's a long straight line. And a very open fire lane at that. Yeah. A Jaguar that Ben left standing is just going to dodge prone because he ain't got capacity to fight a bunch of things. Just some good discipline here. The Tiger's moving up to this sort of safe space inside this this nook. And this is something that you can do in Biotechvore if you've got a secondary group, like the Tigers in this case, where it's just a way of removing mental load. You just take care of the easy, safe moves with the second group. The second group, I suspect, is doing literally nothing except Tigers running forward. Being in this list, it's nothing except Tigers moving forward. So it's easy to get them out of the way first. They're not going to do really impactful things on the turn. The orders don't need to be converted. Just moving them into a safe position gets them off your mind, doesn't leave you thinking about having to remember that you have to do that. Ben didn't do this. He was quite focused on that avatar engagement, and he finished his turn afterwards. But that could be something that he could have done as well, is to spend the orders in the second combat group first, just move up and clear, get these pieces to safety, and then you can focus on the big link and the big link's movement forward. There's also kind of a light tactical advantage in doing that. If you think about how people think, where Ben got to Ben chose to rather move his big link out first and take the big engagement before he did everything else, which meant that he then finished his turn cleaning everything up. That maximized the amount of time his opponent had to think about how to play out the turn now that the pertinent information that the avatar was in loss of lieutenant was now that he knew that piece of pertinent information. If the last thing Ben had done had killed the avatar, then his opponent would have had the least possible time to process what to do about the fact that the avatar had been nuked from orbit by a mobile brigada link that got spicy. Now, this is kind of like there's a limit to how much you can like rely on that kind of thing as an actually meaningful play, play advantage. And the reason why is that firstly, good players will just play well regardless. And secondly, is it's also totally good to give your opponents time to think if they want to. There is nothing wrong. Most events allow 2 hours for a game. TTS is even more relaxed. Kind of nothing stops a player from, if they need to, pausing to take a breath. And if you ever hear like good players, as in players who are good but also good people, talk about how they play a game, you'll hear that like, oh, and my opponent was getting pretty tilted, so we just paused up. He went and got a glass of water. We chilled. He came back to the table, which is a super important thing to let your opponents do. So as much as like I say, it's probably a lightly more mentally efficient for you and mentally inefficient for your opponent way to play a turn is to leave the decisive action until last and do the easy things first. Um, don't take that as a like, oh ho ho ho, I can manipulate my opponent's brains, because you can't and you shouldn't. All right, so we have the Q drone moving around here, and it looks like it's going for a vault. I think it wants to engage the this mobile brigada. Now, my suspicion is that this Q drone is not going to live the turn. He's taking a shot with an irregular order because he has an irregular order. His plan really relies on the avatar. And there's kind of nothing wrong with doing that because if he lands a hit on the brigada and she fails her, well, actually she's got courage, but like I don't know, maybe it's just one of those things. It's just kind of worth it because if it succeeds, then you get lucky and you like crit and hit and some saves are failed and the brigada is unconscious. Well, not just the link is broken, but the avatar's path forward is possible. So this is one of those things that you can do. Is this is just the Q drone. It's got an irregular order, but this is an optimal way to spend it to just to try to get something done. Interestingly, what it looks like is that it's not managed to get line of fire to the Brigada, but it has managed to see McMurray, who is only rolled a 10 and has been crit, but only crit. So two saves on McMurray there. Again, the Q drone was probably not going to get out of the zone, so hey, let's do some damage. And indeed, that's an unconscious McMurray. So great use of an irregular order there. Interesting question now will be, what does he do next? There are a few opportunities. Um,
Maybe we'll check it.
So they're just discussing, does the Brigada have line of fire Dr. Worm? I'd actually kind of be surprised if it does, only because like we saw how it just barely saw the avatar. So let's have a squiz. Or maybe. It's I don't think that's line of fire. I think yeah I no, and it sounds like Ben is agreeing with me.
I would see you through that gap, but because it is snowed, I don't think the Brigada can actually see you.
Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Worm will go for it. It'll take probably 2 orders to get there. Yeah. Nah, that's not line of fire.
Even then, if I did see you, you could also just gizmo kit the avatar, but that you probably want to use command techniques to way more.
Now that's a spicy take. You could gizmo kit the avatar. I would be looking to get a repair roll in myself, but I appreciate the appreciate the chutzpah. This is probably more than 6 inches, so I mean it could just go prone, then it could stand and move.
Yes, that's right. And you actually use your gizmo kit value, which I think is a 13. Now the downside of doing that is if you happen to fail that Viz 13 roll, the avatar will die.
Oh boys, I actually genuinely believe that Ben is trying to be helpful here, but like, and he's giving his opponent options, and there are only so many orders, right? So it kind of like is a like every order is incredibly precious, every command token is precious, but like, holy fuck, you can gizmo kit the avatar, you can, yeah. You don't want to because I mean, he really wants to make the avatar the lieutenant again so that it can mnemoniker if it like. There are a lot of reasons why that big boy wants to be lieutenant because he's got the skill. Ah, there's a rules question. If you're a model with the lieutenant plus one order skill, and something causes you to stop being lieutenant and then become the lieutenant again, do you still benefit from that? Presumably, yes. That seems right, but I'm not dead convinced. There's one for the forums, boys. If anyone wants to answer that in the comments. The avatar has ceased to be the lieutenant. If he becomes the lieutenant again, does he benefit from the lieutenant plus one order skill? And Strategos, obviously. Well, Strategos he would, but it's more the lieutenant. Does the lieutenant thing carry along with? Okay, so he is electing not to make the Gizmo Kit roll. This is going to be a command token intensive play, but I don't think it's wrong. What will also be interesting is to see if the avatar gets out of the zone, because it's going to be engaged by this Brigada, and it's only got one wound. Um, this I think is wrong, by the way. This player is playing remarkably well through some challenging times, but I think Dr. Worm should be moving in this direction, up, hugging this building, just to give it the best chance of getting clear and up into this canyon here, because this canyon is the place that it will be able to go to get out of the Biotechvore zone. And every inch could matter there, so this decision to hug the back table edge is maximizing the likelihood that the poor medtech gets eaten by the Biotechvore. All right, engineer roll fails, so we're gonna have a reroll here, and he has to command token this, right? So oh dear. Okay, so these are command tokens. We've had 2 failures already. These are command tokens that the combined army player really can't afford to spend. All right, so there we go. We have a success. So the avatar is back online. It is of course badly wounded, but it is intact. Now those 2 command tokens are probably going to turn straight to casualties. He's yeah, he's got. I mean, as we noted, this shrouded can kind of survive the zone, but yeah. All right. So let's see now what your boy Avatar does. On that note, actually, while our CA player Cyber Ghost is deciding, it's actually an interesting point. He's taken Dr. Worm, and this is something that I increasingly like as well. Obviously, you have multiple engineer choices with the Avatar to combo with the Avatar and combined army, and a popular one is the Caliban. The Caliban, of course, is an engineer. It's one whip lower than than Dr. Worm, but it just does. It still can be an engineer. It still rerolls. It would have rolled all of the exact same mods, exact same dice as Dr. Worm just did. But the Caliban is a fight monster. The Caliban is a Prothean model with decharges and surprise attack and camouflage. And if it gets in on something, it will monster it and come out the other side with 3 wounds. But I'm increasingly finding that I would rather have Dr. Worm as well. What I was finding in my avatar lists is that firstly is if you need an engineer with an avatar, you need an engineer with an avatar. And so like the fact that the Caliban is up in the midfield, dicking around, like making threatening noises, sometimes means it gets killed. It's even though it's under camouflage, it habitually is further forward than Doc Worm, which is means it's in a more threatenable position. Um, but then separately, the Doc Worm is also a doctor and is faster. Doc Worm often is going to be better at getting into positions from where it needs to be to do all sorts of things with your army. And there are like if we look at this, there are a few things that an engineer will fix, but there are also things that a doctor will fix. Something like, say, this Datarazi, for example. And I really like to run Sheshkin with my avatar, and also popular, like a Noctifer. There is plenty of reason to have a doctor, and the points that you save by taking a medtech sometimes let you fit one extra thing, like the difference between a Caliban and a medtech. And we will pause and check this here while the players are taking some face-to-face rolls. Ah, yeah, more checking on the more checking on line of fire with that Brigada. So the medtech clocks in at 22 points, and by comparison, a Shazvasii Caliban engineer clocks in at 28. The difference that allows for like an extra Taiga creature in a list. And an extra Taiga creature is significant and a Taiga creature might just do as much as and as the Caliban might in close combat, and you still have that split. You have the extra wound, you have the extra body, you have the extra irregular order and the impetuous order. So just like that's something to consider. The wisdom that the Caliban. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a Caliban, and especially if you're a player that has learned to use it. If you have like figured out how to use the Caliban, how to get CC kills, when it's right to activate the Caliban rather than activating the Avatar, 100% fantastic pace. No one will ever argue that the 28 points for the Caliban are badly spent. But yeah, I'm just finding it's this weird return to form. I like our player here, kind of just like taking the medtech. Although again, part of that is because I'm experimenting with a Sheshkin avatar list, and if Sheshkin goes down, I really want to be able to bring her back up, and I'm not risking a bloody siege soldier idiot paramedic being in the right place at the right time to do that. All right, so I suspect we'll see a face-to-face roll here. And the avatar is going to probably break cover, but get in range, which is going to mean that the face-to-face roll is 4 dice 15s versus 2 dice 13s, which is pretty good. But also, if he takes an armor-piercing round crit, right, like if the Brigada just wins it, then it's all real bad. Interesting question is if the Avatar has cover or not there. I think if he'd hung back very, very slightly, like literally half of an inch, he'd still have cover. But I don't think he's got it there. Yeah, he doesn't. And fair enough. Another thing that it looked like he didn't have enough movement, and this is actually really good discipline. It's very, very easy to just like really shortcut your way through corners. But it looks like the command army player has measured this and determined that he did not have enough movement to vault all the way over the flower beds and get to this position in the nook of the building here. And he's gotten within range. So he hasn't been punished for good discipline measurement, which is good. Because this is, he's checked to see where he can go. He's determined that he can't get to this maximally forward position. Good. And he's measured it right. That's something that's really easy for players to, because like you want to get it forward, right? Okay. So unfortunately, the Brigada has won the face-to-face roll there. So the Avatar is going to be rolling and is destroyed. That's a shame. That's a kind of like sad, slightly anticlimactic end. Sorry, no, it's in unconscious level 2, not destroyed. But okay, I think we might be seeing that Gizmo kit after all. Unfortunately. He deserved to win that face-to-face roll. This was such an interesting play to push the Avatar forward. Sorry, to let the Avatar go unconscious in order to be able to bring it back. I think it spoke to a real like he understood what his win condition was, um, and his win condition is the big guy. So yeah. So there's just a pause now. I think he's just trying to figure out what to do next. We'll see if he chooses to Gizmo kit or not, or just push forward and accept the biotech rolls. Okay, so we've got a coordinated order he's been pushed forward here. Just jumping back into it. We've got a coordination between the Q drone, the Datarazi, and this Icadron, and I think that's everything. Oh, and this camouflage marker. As this is moved out into the open, it's moved up and over this car to engage the Mobile Brigada missile launcher, and there's the hacker that's involved there, and we'll see as well. Now he's running very short on command tokens here. I assume the Q drone is the spearhead. I'm not confident that he'll be able to get clear here, and this is also not an amazing face-to-face roll. A lot of resources have been invested. It's a real shame, actually, that things have turned out this way, because I think the way the Combined Army player played, like, to take nothing away from our Corregidor player here, absolutely fantastic tactical acumen, figuring out both the position and the play to really, really establish a decisive advantage. But it was such a ballsy play with the Avatar. But yeah, there's some questions to be asked, or some considerations, things that could have been different at list construction that maybe would really have changed things. I think that Kudon's just been crit by a missile. Goodbye, cruel adventure game. Yeah, unconscious and dead. So that there are a few things that we can look at in the army here, and we can think maybe changes to this list would have enabled him to survive this turn. And in particular, we've got 2 Icadrons in this list that could have been R drones, and two R drones would have enabled you to get clear more easily and would also have been less susceptible to the things that killed them. So a missile launcher clipped and killed the Brigada. Having mimetism would have been really good there. But then downgrading both of these Icadrons to R drones would have accommodated you an Imatron. And Imatrons actually are a fascinating piece to think about in the context of the Biotechvore scenario, because obviously they can't move, and they airborne deploy in, and they airborne deploy on 9s because of the penalty from the Biotechvore zone. But if they land, fantastic. They are out of the zone, free and clear. If they don't land, they are going to die. They are BTS 0, and they have structure, and they will be in your deployment zone in the zone. But also, sometimes things just have to die in Biotechvore anyway. Sometimes you have to leave a model or two behind. We saw Ben made the decision to sacrifice his transductor zones, and one of them died, and then one transductor zoned, and Billy went out to the plague zone to get the other models forward. An Imatron in this scenario would have been at minimum 1 extra regular order that the Combined Army player could use to get things clear, but it also would have been a veteran. And with the Avatar, you never plan on going in loss of lieutenant. It's a pretty rare thing. But having another veteran here would have been fantastic. And I'm aware that I'm speaking massively with the benefit of hindsight. It's 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 like we are making hypothetical proposals about editing an army list after having seen almost 2 entire turns played. So, of course, we can now say that an Imatron, exchanging these 2 Icadrons for for R drones and an Imatron to get an extra regular order in a lost lieutenant turn would have done X, Y, and Z. But it's something to consider. I think Imatrons and of course Netrods in Aleph still have a place in this scenario, even if kind of they are doomed to die if they don't make their airborne deployment roll on a 9. So this was revealed to be a Caliban briefly. It presumably took a face-to-face roll, but I don't think we've seen any dice rolled. Not actually sure, but I assume that was a Caliban. Maybe that was a Caliban chain of command. Now that would be interesting. So I didn't catch this. I had assumed that there was a turn of loss of lieutenant here, but it looks like there is not. So that actually makes a lot of sense of how some things have been played. I was like, shouldn't there have been more command tokens spent here? But if this is a Caliban chain of command, and of course I can't flick it back on, it could have just as easily been a Caliban engineer or a Caliban something else. That actually makes sense of the fact that there have been some orders spent, although it doesn't really explain this Q-drone's movement to kill McMara. Oh well, I'm sure we'll see. So there's 1 command token and 1 regular order left on the Combined Army player's order board here, and I think it's going to be savagely short. It has to be a coordinated order, and it has to get Datarazi and the Icadron clear, but it's going to leave Bit and Kiss, this Shrouded, who can at least regenerate, Dr. Worm, possibly Dr. Worm's Slave Drone. No, it looks safe, but like that's the wrong way around. Yeah. So it looks like what he's doing is actually just going to hope to roll some Biotechvore rolls. So the last order, yep, we might see that Gizmo Kid on the Engineer here. So I think what the Engineer needs to do is make a run for it to get clear of the zone, but he's not going to. He's not going to be able to move and Gizmo Kit. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, he'll want a Gizmo Kit, because, like, you may as well. Need to roll a 14 or less, then a 13 or less, which is about a coin flip. But a coin flip to bring this avatar back. I mean, it's going to start taking Biotechvore zone rolls in a second anyway. But still. I do not envy Sabre Ghost this decision. This face-to-face roll with the avatar I think was a real shame, but he deserved so much better. All right, so the worm is moving forward. Again, really good disciplined movement here. No corner cutting. Really nice to see. Yep. All right. Here comes the Gizmo Kit, boys.
Yes. So 13. Yes.
Ah, he fucking does it. He lives. Okay. All right. So our our hopes for our combined army hero here now rely on an absolute metric fuck ton of Biotechvore saves. Let's see what lives. Okay. Come on, you beauties. I want to see an absolute sea of 15s. Yeah, that's that's an awful lot of things in the zone. Important stuff first. Okay, well, the Datarazi is still unconscious. That's fantastic. Avatar passes his first save. And passes his second. The game is afoot, boys. Okay. Shrouded. Survives. Yes, yes. Live. Everything live, please. Okay, I think that's Dr. Worm unconscious, unfortunately. Yeah, no BTS. So the Doctor is down. So the Avatar's not coming back a third time. That is actually one thing to note about the Ichadron over the... Ha 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 ha. This Datarazi has survived as well. So the Ichadron is BTS 6, whereas that's rare on a remote. So the Ichadron is fine as well. Kiss BTS, I think 6 as well, right? No, only 3. So Kiss is unconscious, and then Bits BTS 6 has a good chance here. She needs to roll like a 1. A 1 will not do it, unfortunately. Okay, so a couple of casualties, but frankly tolerable under the circumstances. Now, what really sucks is that this avatar is in the open. It did not get to cover. It is not in a good place. But this has been like one of the most absolutely heroic attempts to save a situation that I have seen. Now, based on the assumption that this is a chain of command Caliban, which of course I don't have the players' army lists for this, I did not know that. That makes the decision to not Mnemonica with the Avatar a bit more sensible. But even if he hadn't had chain of command, I think it sort of still presents a fascinating thing to talk about, because sometimes you will want the Avatar to Mnemonica, and sometimes you will not. So yeah, really interesting turn to play it out. Ultimately, only McMurrough as a casualty. So Corregidor is sort of well ahead here. And in addition, I think Ben is now aware of the fact that this camouflage marker is not a hacker, which is something he would have been concerned about. But yeah, so I suspect this missile launcher is just going to pull back slightly to catch the Avatar at bad range again, and then hew on into him a second time. But we will see. Yeah, so here we go. So some consideration, I'm sure, on Ben's part, which is the got to do classifieds, got to do other stuff. But there's no retreat in this scenario, and the missile launcher is pretty much on the money, taking the Avatar down a second time. Third time, sorry. Uh, she she's had her work fucking cut out for her, that's for sure. But yeah, okay. So the Avatar knows that he's in good range at the start. He is banking on a 1 dice 15 versus 2 dice 10s face to face. And of course, in Ben's shoes, what I would actually do is I would choose to fire from the furthest point, kind of regardless, because you'll know then if like you have to move back further. What is the game like? So the Avatar wins the face-to-face roll. So we've got an explosive round, and this is really what he was banking on. So 1 wound on the Brigada. Yeah. So the Ben needed 9s there, and he's rolled an 8. But it looks like the girl. Now he didn't measure this. But what would have been sensible is to take that fight at the furthest point, and so that you know if you're in or you're out. I've got the audio for them turned down, but there's some very deep sighing there from Ben. Ben, you do not get to fucking sigh. You've killed this Avatar twice now. The casualties inflicted are prodigious. But yeah, so what we'll see is I'm sure we'll see this happen again. And at this juncture, she should be out of line of fire. She's moved back like 2 inches, and it was a 30-something inch face-to-face. So she's going to be on 13s here. And she's going to be on 13s, and the bad range now will pull the Avatar back down to 9s. So honestly, that's a good face-to-face roll for something like against something like an Avatar. And it's actually really speaking, like, noting that the Avatar is out of cover, I think, and just pausing to critically assess this here, I think it is incorrect to continue to take these fights with the missile launcher. The first one, maybe, but I think maybe the HMG should move up. Now, you can swing range on the Avatar. You can go 2 dice 13s versus 1 dice 9s. But you could also go 5 dice 10s versus 1 dice 15s. And the Avatar's not in cover. Man, I would have to break the dice calculator out for that. That is a prodigiously difficult one to actually, because the range flip is really significant. Still, Brigada has moved back. Let's see what they do. Okay, so there's a decision to dodge because he knows that the range is bad, and in particular, a dodge has a chance to. Ooh, it's 31.9. Still, I respect that decision, and a dodge has a really good chance to get him into cover, which is good. Good decision. So let's see how this goes for them.
It's an 8 and a 2. If
I
you
got
dodge, that's 6
18.
armor saves.
Oh, nice.
Okay. This is almost certainly the end for our poor boy. Yeah, those are 3 failed saves. So that's unconscious, unconscious, dead. Okay. I think he might be assuming that he had cover when he did not. Oh, maybe he did actually. Now that we're really close to it, maybe he did have cover. But still, those are still 3 failed saves, and you had 1 wound. That model is really dead. That model is really dead at this point. But it does not matter because there's no engineer. He should actually choose to Memnonica here. I don't know what he Memnonica into, but like he should at least Memnonica into this Icadron because the Icadron can Flash Pulse and Massive Whip then. There's no reason not to. Anyway, looks like McMurray. Yep, McMurray has come back. Thrip Thrip Paramedic Dart from a Core Link Doctor, needing 17s. So McMurray's back in London of the Living. And just going to turn the players up for a second. We'll watch Ben so they continue to play this turn while I do some math.
So we'll spend an order on Macmurder. Gonna go maybe before we. Okay. So we'll spend an order on Senior Massacre.
Why is that so loud on this stupid program? Anyway. So Senior Masakari is moving forward.
Oh, that Echidron would have totally seen this shotgun guy. Actually, we
Yep.
that. That's fine. I think we're gonna have Senior Massacre basically stand up
Okay.
and move just enough to see that Echidron,
Mm-hmm.
and this
Then I guess.
Jaguar will go prone.
Okay. Then I will try to flash pulse your senior.
Yep, cool. I'll blast you with my
Okay.
Tiger combi.
I've done the math, by the way. It was
Range.
very, very slightly
Outside of
optimal
16.
for the
You
Brigada
get
to move into
close
range,
contact with this
but
thing,
the
does it?
only reason it was slightly optimal is that we
Okay.
knew that the avatars
So I've
was
just
the avatar was
moved
within 32 on
my
all of those dice
side
rolls. If the avatar
and
is
use
outside of
the
32 against the
four shot.
Brigada missile, then the Brigada missile launcher's got a much better chance. And it's something like a 67% chance to do it at least one wound, whereas the HMG has a 49% chance. But if the missile launcher can't get out of the avatar's good range bracket, then the HMG is the superior choice. Now again,
Just one hit.
that wasn't like
I mean,
when
I'm
we
sorry,
were
those
eyeballing it,
BPS is
and by
fine,
we I
so
mean
it's
I
fine.
and
I'll
collectively the
get my
players,
Tiger combi.
everyone simultaneously reached the assumption that the Brigada had gotten into the avatar's bad range. And indeed, actually, the combined army player acted on that assumption and declared a dodge with the avatar rather than a shoot. But knowing now that the missile launcher hadn't been able to get clear and couldn't stay in line of fire and out of good range because of how far the avatar had moved forward, the HMG was the right choice, just barely. It's like 49. Both of them are like 48, 49% chance to do at least one wound, but the dice on the HMG give the avatar a much lower chance of beating it in a face-to-face roll.
Actually, they don't want to move out too much.
Alright, so Ben's just going for kills here, and I assume he's doing that on the ground. So you do actually have to do classifieds. Biotechvore is a very classified-oriented scenario.
The other guys will.
And he's really running the risk that, like,
Mm-hmm.
this camouflage marker is going to flip and run around and stab something. But,
He's probably fine making this. So what does that was?
yeah, Ben is going for kills. He's looking to lock his opponent out, and then he will presumably spend the last turn
So we'll do that.
just doing as many
Should be
classifieds as he can.
range.
And if we look at the order count that he's still got 7 orders this turn, potentially to accomplish things. So we'll see what he does with them.
Can the Datwazi see that point?
Okay, so he will throw then maybe.
Alright, we've got a smoke face-to-face between this Datarazi and Senior Masakari. Like, these are not amazing face-to-face rolls. Like, this is more than 16, but yeah, he's burst 4, and it's something, right? There's no risk here. The Datarazi is always going to throw smoke.
I'm on 16. Oh no, I'm on 17.
17.
Yeah.
I think those are all misses. Yeah, those are all misses. So smoke goes down. With the Datarazi's mimetism there, Senior Masakari needed, sixes probably?
Will you excuse me for 5 minutes? I need to switch classroom for my daughter to join.
So yeah, I think this is,
That's fine. Go for it.
yeah. The Ben as the Corregidor player here has really zeroed in on the way to win the game. At this juncture with Datarazi, he could move Masakari up to here and go for a Discover Shoot against this Caliban. Don't think that's the worst. Also would be totally fine to use Senior Masakari to take that kill, but it's probably time to start doing classifieds soon. There cannot be many classifieds. Again, I've not seen the classifieds for each player, but there can't be a ton that are doable by one Shrouded Forward Observer in the deployment zone, one Datarazi, and a Caliban chain of command. So, well, and to be fair, a couple of Tega creatures. So, we will see. So McMara moving forward here. And it looks like McMara, so in the absence of like literally anything that can stop him, technically speaking, we could have some zone of control dodges from Taggers or something at some juncture maybe, but realistically, the Avatar can, so McMara can come in on this Caliban, and really all he needs to do is just force it to reveal. And then there are any number of things that can kill it. And the Caliban is the lieutenant, right? So there was a turn without LOL, which means that the Caliban took over when the Avatar went unconscious. So really it's just like, bring this thing down. There's one command token on the command army player side, but there just aren't models. There aren't enough things left. So McMurray is just moving around here. Discussion about stealth and the fact that McMurray no longer has stealth, which we know, because it's no longer nested in martial arts. But yeah, I suspect nothing from this camouflage marker, but yeah, around he comes. And so what we'll probably see is a discover shoot, although this is actually a little bit dicey. That's in dodge range for a Caliban, and if he declares discover, fix your fucking facing there, Ben, by the way. If he declares discover and the Caliban dodges, then the face-to-face roll between McMurray and a Caliban in close combat is like very, very close. Okay, yeah, he's just figured his shit out. Cool. Although, actually, disregard that. FAQ time. It's been ruled that you can declare Berserk while in close combat. Against almost anything else, you actually would not want to Berserk a Caliban. Because if you Berserk a Caliban, it will just hit you with a D-charge. That won't be a face-to-face roll, and it will gain, like, all of the wounds from your corpse. It will cook and eat you. But against McMurray, realistically, the most damage you can expect even a D-charge to do is 1, because he has total immunity. Which means that, and McMurray, of course, critting on pretty good rolls himself. Very, very high damage, so good chance to do two wounds there, overcoming any of the wounds that the well, actually martial arts applies in both cases. But anyway, yeah, I still think it is dodge here because getting into close combat with a Caliban gives you the best overall chance of survival. But yeah. This is an interesting one. Command Army player has made good decisions so far in terms of risk reward. There's also a good question that I think this guy is supposed to be in base contact, but he's not. They might just shuffle that around. But yeah, let's take a squiz. So McMurray's close combat stats are he's a chunky CC23 with martial arts 3. Berserk, but no bonus to the Berserk, then all of the usual Dog Warrior stats. If he hits you at damage 18, double action armor piercing. By comparison, so yeah, in a face-to-face roll is a dead tie. Both players will use their martial arts, which means that both players will be on base rolls, CC23, which means that each player has got about a 20% chance to crit. That's 17, 18, 19, 20 are crits. It is not per se a game of who crits wins. McMurray in the Berserk fight, but if McMurray just doesn't win the face-to-face roll and it's a normal face-to-face roll, that's really bad because the Caliban will get wounds. If McMurray berserks, then McMurray is favored to trade for the Caliban, but it's actually surprisingly close, right? Because the Caliban has about let's see, Caliban rolling in with its DACCW at damage 15. Yeah, so actually the best chance for the Caliban is to use its just checking here, Caliban SMG. Yep, so chain of command Caliban. The best chance for the Caliban here is to dodge in close combat, and then in a non-face-to-face roll berserk scenario, Caliban does not use its D charges because it's higher base damage with its CCW. Like all Calibans have are CCWs and D charges. They almost always use D charges, but against McMurray, you use your martial arts and your CCW because it's higher overall damage. It gets you to 15 because you're dealing with total immunity. That's got a 50-50 to do a wound to McMurray. So basically, in that face-to-face roll, the Caliban either needs to get very lucky with armor rolls or needs to crit and McMurray doesn't, and McMurray needs to roll some saves. So, Caliban dodges in close combat. Okay. So there are a couple of ways this could end up going. I suspect a berserk attack, but let's have a look-see. Tagus Natarazi is also dodging.
I think he will dodge somewhere up here.
Datarazzi moving forward on the dodge. Looks like it succeeded.
I think that still means inside smoke.
Yep, needed an
Can't
11,
remember
succeeded.
if this thing actually cuts that off.
No, it's not in the smoke. This thing is
It's
not
on
in the
smoke.
smoke.
Okay, so if you go on top of that, you're not on smoke. Might be
Yeah.
bad.
Because remember that fancy picture?
Yeah.
Then you have balcony and then smoke going up, so and balcony blocks the smoke.
Yeah. Okay.
Datarazzi just staying in smoke there. If it crested this hill, it would leave the smoke grenade.
Yeah. So now your turn. Yep.
I'm just gonna berserk you, I guess.
So, McMurray coming in for the berserk.
You gonna berserk me. Okay, then yeah, I cannot dodge against berserk, but
You
I can
can't
try
dodge
to.
against berserk.
But I can use yeah, decharges.
Just keep in
in
mind the
system.
decharges don't actually do anything against McMurray because he's got total immunity.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, right,
still,
right.
yeah, so you're better off just punching him with your martial arts.
Okay, I will, yeah, punch you with your martial arts, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, both players figured it out. Let's see how this
individual
resolves.
final, of course. So I am on a. I can't remember if I can use my martial arts if I berserk or not.
Yes, both players
I
can
don't
use their
think so.
martial arts.
Okay, and it's not a face-to-face war, so you can't actually use your martial arts against.
No, it's not face to face. Yeah, this one I was
But
thinking
can you
even
still
one.
use it to get the +3 though? We'll just roll the dice and see what happens.
Okay, yeah. So I'm rolling
Oh.
116.
Yeah, the answer to this one is actually both players can fully use their martial arts, but the players.
No, not on
Berserk
16,
is a bit of a tricky one.
And you
So
get
no
a
crit from Cyber Ghost, and
so
it
I
actually
have
does not
one
matter.
armor
Literally
save,
doesn't
you
change
have
anything.
3 armor saves,
McMurray has crit,
damage
and
16.
the Caliban has not. So
McMurray has fine. That's 3 armor saves because I got a critical hit with a
yeah,
double.
McMurray passes his armor roll on a 13 plus 4. We've got one pass, one fail. One needs to be one more roll, but it doesn't matter. So this is the case. This is the the ideal case that that Corregidor was looking for, which was that McMurray comes through alive and kills the Caliban. Caliban is actually unconscious. That's probably even more ideal, because now if Ben has to do anything to a corpse, that's a sinister statement, he's got a body there that he can act on. Again, that's a really sinister statement. So this is now basically an ideal case. In fact, this is functionally a stitched up game for Corregidor. If we look at the resources available to the combined army player, they will be Lost Lieutenant next turn. They have 1 Shrouded Forward Observer, 1 Datarazzi, and 2 Tiger Creatures. That's the sum total of what they have. There's not really any actionable plan that can be pursued with that. By comparison, Ben has 3 orders left this turn. And he's doing a classified with one of them. Yep, so there we go. So we've done net undermine. And without knowing what they are concealed to me, without knowing what Ben's other 2 classifieds are, I'm going to assume that he picked ones that he could do. And he hasn't lost any of the resources he might want to use to do them. He still has veteran troops, still has a doctor, still has an engineer, still has a hacker. So this is looking very, very much like we'll have a pretty stitched up, might even be 10-0. Actually, it won't be 10-0 because there have been, well, actually, there haven't even been that many casualties for jurisdictional command of Corregidor here. So if we go to the ITS document and we check season 12, there's a very good chance Ben is at maximum scoring threshold, because in Biotechvore, obviously you are looking for models to survive and classifieds done are your main things. And yeah, if we jump to Biotechvore, I think there's a very good chance Ben has got more than 250 surviving victory points. 250, sorry. So just actually because McMurray is still alive. So we do some quick maths here. McMurray's alive. That transductor is, well, let's not assume much. That transductor is alive. So we've got a transductor to, yeah. So it's possible that enough things can die to pull Ben below the maximum threshold, but it's pretty difficult. And actually, if he just gets McMurray to safety, or if McMurray doesn't get killed by subsequent attacks and is able to be medicked back up, this is a very safe game. There's a good chance this is a proper 10-point stitch up, which is hard to do in Biotechvore, by the way. Coming through with straight up less than 50 points of casualties in a 300-point game, that is not easy. And I think basically pretty much it's come down to the fact that Ben identified this this play here with the avatar versus the missile launcher and the ranges for it. So we there's no orders left. There's been a mine placed by the evader. It looks like, but basically there's a very slim order count as the command army player pulls into his second turn. We will move quickly through and see what he can do. But really, this is at this point all over bar the angry shouting. So we will see. We will see how it goes. So Impetuous Adarazi moving forward. We have a dodge from McMurray and a couple of breaker combos from the Dadarazi. Dadarazi, I assume, is going for a fight here, but no, all right. So he's going for smoke instead. But yeah, I wonder if he has any classifieds that Dadarazi can do. I would hesitate to guess. There are not a lot, but
Okay, I have one.
okay. Looks like Dadarazi's going to get shot by Senior Masakari. Now let's have a look.
That's too many dice.
Probably expecting a reroll there.
2 under 5.
So 2 hits on the Dadarazi.
Oh gosh.
And there he goes.
1 and 10. Okay.
And
Good.
which passes.
So, and that I think we can safely say is that Dadarazi died in the impetuous phase.
I have watch point.
And that means that there are literally no. There's one model, this Shrouded.
Okay.
A regular Shrouded in Combat Group 1 who has that regular and 1 irregular order to spend.
Oh, just for fun.
And then there are just some Tigers. So I think we are just about done here. I will pause now and I will come back at the end of the Combined Army player's turn. Quick recap, and then again at the end of the Corregidor player's turn, and we'll close out. Just coming into the end of the Combined Army turn here, and the Combined Army player has managed to do his telemetry classified, forward observing an enemy model. But apart from that, everything is dead. This Tiger creature is unconscious. The Tiger creature is unconscious. This Dadarazi is dead. And this Shrouded has just failed its roll against the Biotechvore zone. Now, it could actually stand back up again if it wanted to. But yeah, we're just going to see now. McMurray is in the impetuous phase, executing this Caliban. And then he'll secure the HVT as the last thing. So that pretty much wraps up this game. There is no conceivable way for these remaining 2 classifieds to be done by a single unconscious Shrouded, even if it regenerates itself at the end of Ben's turn. Which basically means that we have the game done. That concludes us with a 10-1 win. 1 classified accomplished by that heroic Shrouded Forward Observer, but otherwise everything has been done and dusted by Corregidor. Thanks very much for the players for agreeing to be recorded. This recording has come in at about an hour and a half. We've made fairly judicious use of pauses to keep the action flowing. If people have gotten to this far in the recording and have any feedback on how that works as a format, I'm very interested in hearing it. Please leave a comment below. And then additionally, we'll be doing some experiments, continuing the Remote Access League broadcasting with, we're hoping to do a recording early Sunday morning my time with a guest host. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably be a hot mess, but it should at least be good. Should at least be a good time to record. So again, thank you very much. Just a reminder, the Remote Access League is currently ongoing, but signups will be open very soon for the next season. You can check the notes in the description below for the most current invite to the new Remote Access League server. In addition, there is a Remote Access League team event, the Human Edge team event coming up. Players of up to 5 battling out in matched play. A beautiful selection of maps. You can play with less than 5. It will just mean that multiple players have to play. Some players have to play multiple games each week. Promises to be an excellent time with some fantastic and probably quite good teams already registered. Get yourself some friends. put in an application. It'll be fantastic. Details in the Remote Access League Discord server. I don't usually say this, but like, subscribe, that kind of shit. I think you're obliged to say that if you're a YouTuber. Don't particularly care. I hope people enjoyed this, and possibly expect to see some Remote Access League channel action happening at some point in future. That's something that's on the cards as well. If that's something that goes live, you can also expect to see a link to that in the description. As always, thanks very much, and stay tuned for the next one.